Hello guys, how are you? Hope you're doing great. Okay, today we start talking about the second phase of our own curriculum, which is presentation skills, and we start the first chapter of presentation skills, which is an overview of presentation skills. So if you remember, we talked before about the verbal communication, nonverbal communication, interpersonal and intrapersonal skills, but today we will get to tackle the meaning of presentation skills. So this is the agenda for today. We start talking about what is presentation skills, how to own the stage as a presenter, nonverbal communication and body language, and then we start talking about body language ingredients, and then we'll sum up. By the way, this is a new application I'm using for recording, screen shot recording, so I hope it works pretty well for people rather than the PowerPoint, because I received a lot of complaints from the PowerPoint and the voice and all of that. So this is a video that will be uploaded. Hopefully, inshallah, it's gonna work. Yeah. So right, what is presentation skills? Presentation skills is basically a group of skills you have to have in order to do public speaking, to stand in front of people and talk. Some people don't have the courage to do that. They don't have the courage to stand and talk in front of others. They don't have the skill to do it. They feel afraid. They feel scared. They start to sweat. They start to have their hearts pounding hard, and some of them even faint. So how can we deal with this? This is what we're going to talk about today. How can we get rid of the stage fright, and how can we know the basic ingredients of the presentation that we need to take care of in order for the audience to love the presentation? Right. So, first of all, we need to know one thing, that even if you have the best idea in the world and you don't know how to present this idea, how to sell it, your idea unfortunately will become worthless. So in order for you to sell your idea, in order for people to buy into your talk and believe you, you have to have the skill to do that. So what are presentation skills, right? I want you to remember this chart very well. It's in your PPT, you'll find it. It explains the main aspects that must be in any presentation, and we're gonna go over every single aspect of them right now. First, any effective presentation must start with capturing attention. You have to hook the audience. You have to capture their attention. You have to make them feel interested in your own presentation. In a way or another, not everyone likes to listen. We know that very well from the last chapter. Not everyone are good listeners. So how can I let the audience feel interested in what I am saying? How can I let them buy into my talk? You have many techniques. First, you can start with a question. Just crack a question and let people answer. Like, for example, have you ever been through a hard situation and you managed to handle it pretty well? Have you ever lived the end of the world before? Have you ever been through that situation when your life was at danger and you knew how to handle it very well and save yourself and others? You know, those very intriguing questions, like those questions that let the audience start to think about your own topic, think what you're gonna say. Also, you can start with a joke, but remember, do not make fun of the audience. If you want to tell jokes, tell a joke about yourself, not the people. I mean, don't make fun of your audience, because this is humiliating and some people do not accept it. You can tell a joke about yourself, a joke about a friend who is not in the audience, not anyone from the audience, because it could be embarrassing. One more thing you can do is telling a story, a situation that happened to you today's morning, for example. Anything that happened from your real life that the audience can connect to, can relate to. Like, one day I was walking down the street and suddenly I met a friend that I haven't seen for so long, and we kept talking about and blah 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 blah. And then you end up to the topic, which is your own purpose today. So you have many techniques. The most important thing is to make sure that the audience is fully hooked into your presentation. Excuse me, I'm just gonna double check that the recording is working. Okay, it's working. Great. Okay. Then we need to set objectives. Any effective presenter, any skilled presenter might or must actually make sure that his own objectives and agenda are clear to everyone in the audience. I mean, you don't expect the people to listen to you if they don't know what you're going to talk about. You need to give the agenda fully to the audience before you start anything. Tell them what you're planning to do today, and tell them how much time you're going to be spending with them talking exactly. So for example, I'm going to be presenting for 15 minutes. So you tell the audience that, ladies and gentlemen, today we will talk about 1, 2, 3, and my presentation will last for 15 minutes. You're more than welcome to ask any questions after the end of the presentation or by the end of the presentation. Objectives make people feel comfortable because they feel that they don't have to count the minutes till you finish. They know exactly when you're going to start, when you're going to finish. And take care. If you say 15, it's 15, not 16. So you must stick to whatever time you set to the audience. Also, setting manageable content points. Make sure that your agenda is manageable. It means that don't, for example, put in your agenda that you're going to talk about like traveling. Yes, traveling is a very broad topic. You need to specify, narrow down. I mean, make your points manageable, like you can manage them through the time of the presentation. So I'm going to talk about traveling to India, to US, to France, but I cannot talk about traveling to the whole world. I mean, try to focus your points a bit. Okay. And then let's go the other side. Here. Body language. Of course, no need to tell you about the body language because we spent almost the whole semester talking about the gestures, postures, eye contact, and facial expressions, and the intonation. So the basic ingredient, the most important magical aspect in any presenter is his own body language. Because guess what? People watch you before listening to you. And if you remember your gestures, postures, gestures is the way you move your hands, postures, the way you move your body, intonation, your tone, they all form almost 90% of the presentation. Only 7 or 10% go for the words of the presentation. So your body must talk. You need to move. You need to move your hands. You need to move your body. And remember, every presenter has something called the glass box. And of course, I don't have the ability to show you this with my own body language right now, but I'll make sure to share some videos with you in order to illustrate my point more. What I'm trying to say here is that every single presenter stands inside something called the glass box. A glass box is like an imaginary box that every one of us stand inside. If you make a wrong move with your hands or your body, you break your glass box and you start offending the audience. You start getting into and invading into their personal space, which is really dangerous. That's why body language is really important to any presenter. Okay, let's go here. Transitions. Of course, you do understand that while we're talking about any topic, we need to move from one sentence to another, from one idea to another. We cannot jump from ideas to another. I mean, there has to be a smooth, easy, comfortable transition, which means that, like, for example, I want to move from traveling to India to traveling to Spain. So I'll make sure that I do it in a very smooth manner. So that's it. So I'll say like that. That's it, ladies and gentlemen, for traveling to India. Right now, let's move to traveling to Spain and how traveling to Spain is and what are the main monuments we can visit there. So I mean, make sure you're having an easy, smooth transition from one idea to another in order not to shock the people, in order not to confuse the people. All right, handling questions. Of course, in any presentation, there has to be a questions period, question phase, when people start asking you questions, and you might not like this part, I know, but this is the fact. In any presentation, we must have questions phase. Sorry for that. So, how can we handle this? First of all, you need to declare in the beginning of the presentation that you will not be receiving any questions unless they are asked by the end of the presentation, because you find people in the middle of the presentation raising their hands and they want to ask and they keep interrupting you. So just state from the beginning in your objectives part, in your agenda part, that okay, ladies and gentlemen, I will be receiving any questions by the end of the presentation, so people know that they cannot interrupt you. Okay? All right. What if someone asks me a question I'm not prepared for, or I don't have any answer for? Should I say any answer? Should I just tell him any answer that comes to my mind? Of course not. First of all, you should be fully prepared with all of the details that have to do with the topic. I mean, you're going to talk about traveling to India. You need to know very well what is India and what are the main monuments there, and the culture and the lifestyle and the cuisines and the dishes and everything. So before you talk about something, you need to study it very well. People might ask you about something and you don't know anything about. I mean, they might ask you, for example, about how many religions are in India, and you don't know. I mean, you didn't run into this fact while you're preparing. It's fine, completely fine to say I don't know. And it's not fine to lie or to tell the audience a wrong answer. This is a serious mistake. I mean, you can just say, thank you so much for your kind question. I'll make sure to double check and come back to you with an answer. And you can take the mail of whoever person is asking you and mail him with the answer later on. This is respected. Audience, respect, trust, respect, honesty. If you're honest enough with them, they will respect that. But you keep lying and telling them anything, I mean, telling them whatever information, even if it's wrong. So guess what? One of the audience might just stand up and tell you, no, this is wrong. And this is going to be the end of your presentation. You don't want to do that to yourself. Okay, tone. I think we talked about the intonation a lot before. It's one of the nonverbal communication aspects. And it's really important because intonation is all about playing with your voice. Your voice is the music God gifted you in order to use to deliver a message to people. So if you are angry, it shows in your tone. If you're happy, it shows in your tone. If you're upset, it shows in your tone. So every single way you move your voice, you play with that, it tells people a message. Make sure that your intonation matches what you are talking about. I mean, you cannot talk about happiness and your voice is sad. And you cannot talk about positivity and you're miserable. I mean, you don't expect people to believe you like this, because the voice hits the ears before the words. So your tone is your magical instrument. Play it right. And we'll talk about the intonation more in a separate chapter. Alright guys, the conclusion. As we talked about the introduction and how we have to hook the audience in the introduction, we make sure that they completely listen to us and they're completely hooked throughout the whole presentation. The conclusion is as strong as the introduction. Because this is the finale. This is when you end the presentation, when you actually play your final note piece of music. If you ever attended any concert, Amr Diab or Amr Khairat or whoever, any musician, you find that they always start with the strongest piece of music and they end with the strongest. Why? Because they want people to walk out of theater remembering them. You want people to walk out of the room and they remember what you said. They remember how you made them feel. They remember actually how they were seated in front of you and they were taken by every single thing you did, by the way you moved, the way you told them stories. You want them to remember. How can I make them remember? You can end your presentation with an open question. You remember the open questions we talked about before? Open question. Like, it doesn't have a specific answer. But never end your presentation with a leading question, or closed, just open. You can end it with a story, you can end it with a quotation, you can end it with a video, end it with music, end it with some sketch that you act out with your team. It depends. Many creative ways to end your presentation. With a phrase that every team member tells. The most important thing, make sure that people walk out of the room and they remember who you are. Okay, great. Okay, guys. So, as we talked a bit ago, we said that nonverbal communication is the most important aspect in the presentation, and we talked about it before in the past chapters. We said nonverbal communication is any wordless communication. Any communication that does not involve any words. And we talked about body language before, and we said that body language actually is the main important part of any communication, and this is a sort of nonverbal communication actually. And words only represent 7% from the whole communication process. I want you to remember that Sherlock Holmes, and of course all of you know him, used to master the reading of the body language. So he used to read the clues, used to read the little things on body language. That's why he could actually solve any crime easily. Why? Because he was a mastermind with reading body language. He could tell from the way someone sits, from the way someone eats, from the way someone talks or walks, what he did exactly, what is his own intention. And reading the body language helps you to understand the person very well. We said before that body language ingredients are eye contact, facial expressions, gestures, postures, intonation, and proximity. Proximity means the distance between yourself and the people around you, and that you need to keep personal space. You cannot invade anyone's personal distance. And that's it for today. Thank you so much. Let me know, please, on WhatsApp or in the comments if you got any questions. I hope it was smooth and easy. This chapter will be followed by a task to do, inshallah. I want you to understand it. Let me know if you got any questions. And thank you so much, guys. Have a great evening.